good afternoon, good evening. We are at the top of the hour. We're going to go ahead and get started. My presenter that's coming is actually having some connectivity issues. He just reached out to me. But I think he'll be here shortly. Dan and Terry, if you can keep an eye out, or Dan, keep an eye out for when he comes in, he can definitely join. So
yep,
again, welcome and thank you. Thank you for coming to Platform Analytics Academy today. We have a really good one on tap. And it looks like he's joining Zoom now, so I think we'll be good. Real quickly, let me just do some logistical things that we do every call that I want to make sure that we put this out there for you. These sessions are for you. We try as hard as we can to bring fresh ideas, better understanding, and practical guidance. And I know that the topic today is definitely one that has been asked for. We touched it a couple of years ago, so we decided to revisit it. Some things have changed, and that's what we're going to do today. So this will be recorded. It will be out on the community page later on this evening or early tomorrow morning. And it's also out on our YouTube channels as well. Please feel free to ask questions. If you could put those in the Q&A window, that would be a lot better for us. I do have other panelists on that will be monitoring. And if there are questions that can be answered via type, they'll definitely do that. If there are questions that are related to where we are in the content, then we may stop Zahi and ask that question. We'll see how that goes. And then if there are any questions that come in that are unrelated to the topic that we're covering today, then we'll try as hard as we can to get to those towards the end, if time permits. Okay. I'm struggling making my slides before. There we go. Safe harbor. I know that Zahi has one of these in his slide deck as well, but we always like to make sure that we put this out there. I don't know how much forward-thinking things are in his slide deck, but again, it's always safe to put this in here. So safe harbor, make sure that no buying decisions are made on anything that we're giving to you today. So please just keep that in mind. And then again, my name is Thomas Davis, and we do have Zahi here. Thank you, Zahi, for joining. He's going to be our presenter today. And then we have Dan, who is here. I know Tara will be here at some point, and I believe Adam may be here as well. But if not, I always like to show who's here. So thank you all for joining and helping out. And again, like I said, today we are going to talk about using UX analytics to optimize web experiences. So user experience analytics is what we're going to be looking at today. I'm crazy excited. I know Dan is as well, because we do get a lot of these questions in the community, and having more content at our fingertips via this presentation and demo is always great for us. So with that, I believe that Zahi has joined. So Zahi, if you have, you're definitely welcome to start sharing.
Absolutely. Hi, Thomas, and hi, everyone. Thank you very much for joining, and thank you for your time. I'm going to start the share right now. So to quickly introduce myself, I'm a product director on the platform analytics team. I own user experience analytics platform and also several sections in the platform analytics world. And very excited to talk to you today on how user experience analytics can help you optimize your ServiceNow web experiences. So we already mentioned the safe harbor regarding forward-looking statements for UX analytics in this presentation. So please keep that in mind. So we'll briefly go over the agenda. For those of you who are less familiar with UX analytics, we'll do a quick intro. We'll talk about how we can set up and activate UX analytics across the different application types. We'll talk about an extremely important point on how to manage end user consent. And yeah, go ahead, Thomas. Yes, I can.
There's a pretty bad latency issue. So we're actually seeing a mixture of your title slide and the safe harbor. So if you're on the agenda slide, we're actually not seeing that yet.
Yeah, I don't know if that locked. I don't know if it froze with the video.
Okay, so just 1 second. I truly apologize.
Listen, at the end of the day, for those of you that don't know, Zahi is in Israel, so obviously there's some distance here, but we're going to work through it. So yes, you are sharing your screen now, and we see the agenda.
And I hope the audio is in sync as well. Please let me know if you
we'll
see additional latency once I switch. Great. So regarding managing end user consent, we'll also review some of the deliverables that will be included in the Vancouver release. And then the majority of our session will be around the live product demo on the dashboard. And we'll wrap up by showing you kind of exciting capabilities on how you can embed UX analytics data as part of your next experience dashboards. So I've switched to the next slide. Thomas, Dan, if you can confirm that we're in sync.
Yep, we're good.
Yes.
Great. Happy to hear. I hope we are past the technical issues. So User Experience Analytics is ServiceNow's usage analytics platform. It is used to analyze usage, engagement, adoption, retention across multiple ServiceNow assets, including mobile platform, service portal, virtual agent, the next experience, and recently in the Utah release, also Core UI, kind of the classic ServiceNow experience. So User Experience Analytics is automatically embedded into all of these applications and helping you understand user behavior and engagement across these different application types. We'll cover the key features in the demo, but our usage analytics platform allows you to track single user and single session data. That's kind of the raw data, kind of the building blocks that helps us analyze the data. And on top of the raw data, we provide you with a plethora of different analytics analysis capabilities, including user flow analysis, navigation paths, funnels, cohorts, the ability to send and analyze your custom events, analyze retention, and much more. So we'll go through that in the demo. Now, let's talk briefly on how to set up and activate user experience analytics across the different application types. So on the left, we can see a table of all the different application types, which I've mentioned, and we can also see the first supported release. So you can see that for most of the application types, UX analytics support has been around for a while. Next experience was added in the San Diego release, and I mentioned that Core UI support was added in Utah. All of these channels and all of the applications in these channels are tracked automatically by UX analytics. It means that you don't need to do anything to start tracking these applications. And there's a table on the instance which can actually show you which applications are tracked with User Experience Analytics. The name of the table is User Experience Analytics Settings. It will contain a record for each tracked application, and you can actually enable or disable User Experience Analytics settings for a specific application if you choose to do so. You can do this by clicking on the actual record and editing the enabled flag. Obviously, all the changes are immediate. Once you enable or disable tracking for a specific application, it will automatically take effect. Now, there is one note to mention. Initially, when we deployed UX Analytics for Service Portal, it was not tracking all the portals by default. So for custom for a while and use the first version of UX Analytics for portals, not all portals are tracked by default. So to enable tracking for a specific portal, you would need to log in to the portal record. You would under portals, for example, in my example, we have an AI search admin tools portal, and we have this button of create analytics settings. So if you see the label create analytics settings, it means that UX Analytics is not enabled on that specific portal. And once you click on it, then tracking will be enabled. How to access in order to access the dashboard, you would simply type User Experience Analytics and click on the dashboard link. In order to view the dashboard link, the user would need to have either one of the admin roles or one of the viewer roles. The admin roles can actually change settings like enabling or disabling tracking for a specific application. And the viewer role can access the dashboard and review the analytics data. And we also have a hierarchy of roles for each channel. So for example, if we want to provide users with the ability to view mobile applications, we would grant them with a mobile analytics viewer role. If we want them to view all types of web applications, we would grant them with a web analytics viewer. And we can see that we have 3 other roles for portal analytics, next experience analytics, and core UI analytics. Obviously, if we want to grant users access to all the different applications, we would just give them analytics viewer role. For now, unfortunately, we do not support app level permission supported in future releases. Now, before jumping to the dashboard, I want to talk about this critical point. I would say that probably the most important aspect for customers, and this is managing end user consent and privacy aspects of analytics tracking. And as I mentioned, I have some exciting news to share regarding the Vancouver release. So pre-Vancouver, and Vancouver will be released obviously later this year in the October or November timeframe. This is the default consent policy that comes out of the box for user experience analytics. So first of all, the default policies depend on the end user's location. The location is determined by the user's IP address. We've learned that this is actually problematic in some cases because we have many companies and customers that are using corporate VPNs where the location of the VPN is not the physical location of the user, and this can lead to kind of skewing the actual user location. So this is actually solved in Vancouver, but you can see that the default policy that for end users are automatically opted in for tracking. Users in the European Union are presented with a yes/no pop-up, and users in other locations of the world will receive a notice. Here we can see screenshots of the yes/no pop-up and the notice. And pre-Vancouver, we have some configuration and some customization options available for managing user consent. Mainly these 2 system properties. So essentially, these 2 properties will allow you to disable the notices and to opt in all the users for analytics tracking, but it's fairly limited. So for example, we had requests from customers to show the yes/no pop-up to all the users, regardless of their location. Happily, this will be supported in Vancouver. Another type of customization we can offer today is changing the text that would appear either in the EU message or in the notice message. It's part of the system UI messages, kind of a part of the standard messages mechanism in ServiceNow. So you can adapt the legal language in the notifications, the wording that you see here, that can be modified. So I do want to talk a little bit about what we're going to deliver in Vancouver. So this is already completed and will be available to customers when Vancouver will go GA. So following customer requests, we are adding that we're no longer bounded by those strict 3 different regions of US, EU, and all other countries. We can actually set a per country policy, and you can see that we support 5 different policies in Vancouver. Between those policies, you can see explicit opt-in, notice, no consent required. We can also disable tracking for specific countries. And we also support a new mode that is called basic tracking that will only track a very minimal amount of data, only increasing counters without capturing any personal or identifiers. We can also apply the same consent policy across all countries with a single click of a button. As you can see here, apply consent policy to all countries. And we've also introduced new location detection policies. Please excuse my typo. So as I mentioned, IP2 location can sometimes be problematic. So we've introduced 3 new location detection policies in Vancouver. The first one will be user country. So we can actually use the user's country field from the table as the user location, the geo IP that is currently supported. And we've also allowed customers to create their own custom scripts for determining policies. For example, we had one use case that a specific user was not supposed to be tracked, for example. So any type of custom scenario will be achievable with these scripts. So I know I spent a significant amount of time on this, but this is actually a critical issue. And we want to make sure that our customers always remain compliant with all privacy regulations, and also giving them enough configuration and flexibility to cater for their own specific use cases. Brilliant. So I'm going to pause screen sharing for a minute while I will jump to the demo. Meanwhile, just to remind you that if you have any questions, you can type them in the chat. I will use.
Yeah, we're keeping an eye. Nothing yet, but we're keeping an eye. And I'm glad you spent some time in the consent, because I know that is a big issue, a big current issue. So thank you.
Absolutely, and definitely waiting for the Vancouver release to solve, hopefully, all of the problems in that specific area.
Yep.
Great. So I've logged into one of our demo instances. This is our Demo Hub portal. So this is an employee facing portal for ServiceNow employees, and it actually allows us to generate a demo instances with demo ready content. So in this demonstration, we'll kind of address an employee facing portal scenario. I'll start with our kind of UX Analytics homepage. This is where we can see a list of all the applications on our instance that are tracked. I can see that they are sorted by the number of active users. We can see how many active users, sessions, and average sessions per user we have per application. It is important to note that UX Analytics tracking is specific for a single application. We have this cross-instance view, which is kind of giving you a bird's eye view on what's happening across the different applications, but the real analysis is happening on the single application level. So what we can see here, that first of all of our statistics and KPIs are bound by a specific date range, which is mandatory. Our default date range is the last 30 days. And in the overview part, we can see the total number of active users, number of sessions, number of page views, and average session duration. The way we define a user is based on their sysid. We are not storing the user sysid, we're storing a hashed sysid. But if the same user is logging through multiple browsers or multiple devices, then obviously we only count him as one user. And new users are users who have used the portal for the first time during the selected date range. Regarding sessions, so a session starts with the first page load and ends after 30 minutes of inactivity. So the data in the dashboard is near real time. You would see the data refreshed once the session is ended after those 30 minutes of inactivity. So it's kind of not in real time, but I would say as near to real time as it can be. Pages and page views are tracked automatically. And they're based on the page IDs you have configured as part of the portals or as part of the platform. And we can also see the average session duration and a trend line for total users and total sessions. We can also group these graphs by daily, weekly, or monthly breakdowns. And we can see the trend line. We can, of course, export the data. In the bottom part, we can see additional information regarding events, funnels, and retention. So events are actually the activities or actions that users perform within pages. Pages are tracked automatically. We do have some out-of-the-box tagging for some events, but I would say the effort that is required from customers who are implementing UX analytics on web applications with ServiceNow is to decide kind of which user activities are important to track and which analytics questions we want to answer with events, and then actually creating the code snippets for sending these events to UX analytics. We'll talk about it as we progress in the demo, but this is actually a critical part. Here we can see that we have these 5 out-of-box events. We have successful login, submit record producer request. We have this event of analytics enabled, search, and view knowledge article. Now let's start drilling into those, I would say, the raw data and the
Hey, Zahi, real quick,
Yeah,
and you may end up answering this question, and if so, just disregard, and we'll get to it when it happens. But the question is, for the users that are tracked, are we able to track user experience by persona? Example, frontline desk list user versus manager personas to better understand experience by persona.
Great question. So this is not something that is supported out of the box, but customers can push what we call user properties or user dimensions. And for example, the role or persona can be a custom dimension that is pushed to UX analytics. We'll talk about it more in a minute, but in the same way that customers can send UX analytics custom data points and events, they can also push custom properties and user dimensions. So the answer is yes, but will require some coding and additional effort.
Yeah, I think that other question's good to ask here too. There's the one that just came in on if customer consent is not there, what all basic analytics are still measured by ServiceNow and available on user analytics dashboard? So is there anything if there is no user consent, and if there is anything, what is there?
Great question. So when there is no consent, then UX analytics will only track the counters data. It means that if a specific individual launched the application, we would know that there was an active user, but we would not know who that active user is. If the user visited a page, then we would increase the page counter, but we would not associate any information with the actual user. So it means that when you're looking at counters in UX analytics, this is actually 100% of the data. But for example, in this view, in this sessions view, you will see this notice that the view only contains sessions of users that opted in for advanced analytics tracking. So you might see a different number of sessions in this view than in the overview. Definitely here we can see a gap of around 200 sessions, and those sessions belong to users that opted out of tracking. So great question. So,
all right, that's it. Go ahead. You can go on. Thanks.
Thanks a lot, Dan. So if we click on one of the sessions, you can see that UX analytics is actually tracking page views. So we have 2 types of tags that can happen during a session: a page visit or an event. For example, you can see that this event is called initiate search, and it has several properties, as we call them. We can see the search keyword, for example. We can see that it's user entered, and we can see the page ID. Now, this is an out-of-box event. In the same way, customers can create their own events, and we'll actually cover this right now and show you how you can push your own custom data. So as part of your custom portal widgets, you would simply call these methods. Okay, I will include, there's a link to the actual developer docs, but I would say in the same way you would tag events in any analytics platform, you would push events to UX analytics. The event would include the name of the event, of course. In this example, we can see manage account is an event, and we can also add additional properties. Here we have 3 properties: function name, user type, and company. And this is the way you would send custom events data to UX Analytics. So it's fairly simple and straightforward, but as mentioned, it will require some product work of deciding which events we want to track, and obviously engineering work of actually coding these events to the custom portal widgets. Now, I can, of course, incorporate these events and properties in my queries. So, for example, if I want to know in how many sessions we had an event where the event is initiate search, we can also filter by the properties where the type is user entered. So we'll run this query, and we'll get the number of sessions. So in the last 30 days, we had 293 sessions, where in the session, the initiate search event was triggered and the type was user entered. Now, in the same way, I can also run a user query. So in most cases, customers are interested to know how many unique individuals have performed a certain action. So I can run a similar query, but just for unique users. So I would run a query, all the users that had a session in the last 30 days. And in that session, we triggered event initiate search, where type is user enter. Right. And we can see, by the way, here that we have 2,300 users that have used this application, this portal all times. And after I run this query, this is kind of a bit of a heavy query, so it might take a while to run, but I would get the result of total unique users that have triggered this event where search is user entered. Great. So we can see overall we have 189 users that meet this criteria. And if I click on a specific user record, then we can actually see the session. And here is the initiate search event. And this is the type user entered. Now, if you recall, we talked about analyzing data per persona. So this is the area where you can actually see those custom dimensions or custom user properties. Here we can see that we only have one out-of-box property, which is instance name. But this is the area that once you push those custom user dimensions, this is where the dimensions will appear. And this is how I can actually include them in my queries. Now, we kind of reviewed the raw data, kind of the building blocks, sessions, and users. Now we can talk about the third object type in user experience analytics and web analytics, which is the page object. So under UI analysis and pages, we would see a list of all of our portal pages sorted from the most viewed to the least viewed page. So we can see that in our case, catalog items is the most popular page. We can see how many views and how many sessions. We can also see that this page is actually included in 90% of sessions and the average duration. I can, of course, export this list. Regarding the names, as I mentioned, these are pulled from the actual page record from the instance. Now, if I click on one of the pages, I will see additional information, including performance information. So performance data was released as part of Utah. It's this area here, and we see that customers find this part extremely interesting. So we can look, for example, on additional statistics like the average page load time. And we can also see a daily trend line with those average load times. And we can segment between what we call client page load, which is more of the client side render, and full page load, which also takes into account the network calls. So this data can also be exported. And as mentioned, this is a fairly new capability that is included in the Utah release. If we scroll down, we can also analyze kind of the previous and next page navigation. So we can see that in most cases, the previous page before Demo Hub Catalog is catalog items, and the next page after Demo Hub Catalog will be submitted requests. And we can see the breakdown, the percentage breakdowns of previous and next page for the Demo Hub Catalog. So this is a very nice visualization, kind of helping us understand what is the typical journey that users take prior on landing on a specific page and after visiting a specific page. And if we kind of zoom out one more level, we have the navigation paths feature, which will actually show us how users navigate across all the different pages. So our starting point is here. This is the session start. So we can see that obviously that in most cases, 85%, then customers land on catalog items, and then 49% of them actually end the session. And we can see kind of how users kind of progress and navigate and all the different paths that users take and kind of the most popular paths. Another great thing we can do is actually select a specific page, for example, submitted request, and we can make it the root of our analysis and then see navigations specifically from this page. So here we can actually see expected behavior that most users after submitting a request would simply end the session. They will just leave the browser, but we can see that others are continuing to catalog items and then actually submitting more requests. So this is kind of very interesting to see after submitting the first request, users go back to the Demo Hub catalog and submit additional requests. And we can potentially even find users that submit more than 2 requests in a single session. So this is a very interesting analysis that helps you understand what are the most, I would say, common and popular patterns that users have on a specific web application.
Hey, Zahi, a question came in real quick, especially with us talking about different navigation paths and that sort. So how do workspaces work with this, specifically agent workspace? Is that something that currently can be tracked as well, or where are we at with that?
Yes, absolutely. So with agent workspace, the page tagging structure will be slightly different. For example, for every new tab in agent workspace, we will tag it as a page. But other than that, it would work in a similar way. I would say the only difference is the way that the out-of-box tagging is working for portal pages versus agent workspace.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions?
It's just confirming, is that also true for service operations workspace? It doesn't really matter what this workspace is, right? You can track it.
That's a great question, but in general, the page tagging logic is identical to all workspaces. So I would say the same rule set applies to all types of workspaces.
Okay.
So the UI analysis section is mostly around analyzing pages, page navigation, page performance, and I think this kind of this module in the dashboard really gives you a very good understanding of where users spend their time in the web application. But up next, I wanted to talk to you a little bit and present funnels. So typically in every application, we have a specific flow or specific flows that we want users to follow. In our portal specifically, we're focused on session. I've actually built this demo funnel, and we'll analyze it, and we'll also build our own funnel. So this is a 4-step funnel. A step of users that started any session, then visited catalog items, then visited page.
Joe, you'd asked a question. I'll throw it out there. Could you follow up on that? Because I was looking for a little bit more information from you on that. So if you could type in if you could type in more info on that question, because I want to know whether it's something we should discuss here on this session or whether I can take that offline with you. And then the other questions, do we have data on, I think a lot of it could be probably a fairly common question is, when we're talking about, do we have data on the different widgets, indicators, and clicks that users do on a PA workspace or PA dashboard? And I don't know if Zahi, if you're back in this, because I don't believe we do on the core UI or the legacy dashboards, but I don't want to speak out of turn.
You're correct, actually, Dan. So for core UI, we don't have this data, but for the next experience dashboards, we do have this data starting the Vancouver release. So it's not available yet, but will be included in the next release.
And that will be like the platform analytics workspace or any other, or where dashboards or dashboard content is embedded in any other next experience view.
Correct. It will be on the database level. But just to further expand on that, so obviously if the dashboard is loaded in the context of platform analytics workspace, it would show up under the platform analytics workspace application. If it's a part of a different workspace, like agent workspace or any other workspace, it would be under the context of that workspace.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't want to catch you. I had one other question, saying that can we know the dashboard or report names and which roles will have access to these reports or events inside of the user experience analytics dashboard?
No, that's not something that is currently provided.
Okay.
So to kind of quickly recap the funnel example, we can see how many users progress from each step to the next, and we can also see the average total completion time. So in our portal, it takes user 41 minutes and 41 seconds on average from the beginning of the session to actually submitting a record producer request. Okay. Now, funnels span across multiple sessions. So if I had multiple sessions, then all of them are kind of combined when analyzing a funnel, because a funnel counts unique users and not sessions. So in every report, we need to understand what are we counting and what are we analyzing. So funnels specifically analyze users. And I'll quickly demo how we can create a new funnel. So I would give the funnel a name, and then I'll start configuring the steps. So for example, if we want to analyze funnels just for new users, I can select session start as my first step of the analysis. And then, for example, I can select an event trigger. Let's go with initiate search. This will be a simple two-step funnel. It can take a few seconds for the funnel to process. Typically, it's very fast. And we can see that the funnel that we created. So we can see how many new users we had in this period, 639 new users, and 8.6% of them have triggered the event initiate search. And on average, we can see that it's taking users 4 days to complete their first search on the portal. Okay. Another form of analysis I wanted to show is the cohort analysis. So funnels show us how many users, or what is the percentage of users that completed a certain action, while cohorts show us how often users complete a certain action. Now, we do offer an out-of-the-box cohort for retention. So this will show us, in this example, how often users return and log in to the portal. So the way that cohorts work, we can see that each row represents a different cohort of users. In this case, we can see that on the week of June 5th, we had 164 new users that logged into the portal for the first time. 40% of them have logged into the portal again during that week. And we can see the percentages in following weeks. So for example, this box tells me that 18% of this cohort, of users in this cohort, have logged in again in the week following their first week of usage. So overall here, I would say we're probably seeing an average of 20% retention for first week. And it really depends on the use case to decide if this is a good number or something we need to improve. For example, for our internal ServiceNow employee portal, we see very high retention rates in the area between 60 and 70%, for example. So it really depends on the use case. Now, going back to the cohorts setup. So as I mentioned, the retention cohort is provided out of the box. But for example, I want to know what is the kind of pattern around submitting a request. So I'll create a new cohort. So I will analyze this cohort by new users. And my action to analyze would be submitting a record producer request. Okay. Like funnels, so this cohort will take a few seconds to process. Let's refresh the page. Great, so we can see that it's ready. And this is very interesting to see. So again, we can see the number of new users in each week. So let's focus on the week of June 12. We see 121 new users. And we can see that more than 50% of this specific cohort actually submitted a request within the first week. And we can see that in following weeks, the percentage is very low. So from this, I can learn that the typical kind of behavior is users kind of using the portal for the first time, submitting a request, and then maybe in following weeks, they have more needs from the portal, but their first need and the immediate need is typically fulfilled in the same day. I'm actually switching to daily analysis, and we can see that this hypothesis is actually seems to be accurate. So we can see very high percentages of users that are actually submitting requests within the first day of visiting and logging into the portal. So again, this analysis gives me a great understanding of how users are kind of behaving over time with regards to specific content on my portal. Up next, we have a few additional areas in the dashboard. One very important area is the events section under analytics. So here we can see a summary of all the events, both out-of-box events and custom events, which we've mentioned. Let's explore again the submit record producer request event. So once I click on the event, I can see a trend line showing the number of occurrences on a daily basis. I can also group it. We can export the data. The nice part here is that I can even export the actual records and do some further analysis in Excel, for example. So if we have some limitations around filtering in the dashboard, we can just look at the actual raw records, and each row will include the content. We can see the user ID, the session start time, event time, the country, event name, and all the other event properties. So this can be very valuable when you want to do some maybe VLOOKUPs or pivot tables and further analyze data in UX Analytics. And for the submit record producer request, we can see the additional properties. We have a record item property, and we can see the kind of the segmentation on this specific property. I can also look at the values. So we can see that deploy new instance is the most popular request on our demo hub portal. So we can actually see that we have these top 3 requests, and all the other request types are less lower. So we can do this for other events as well. So for example, initiate search, and we can see kind of the keyword breakdown, for example. Again, this is mostly used for testing and demo purposes, but we see that there's no kind of specific term that users search for. Procurement is the most popular term and getting 2.8% of searches. And we have a few other reports in the dashboard. I'll quickly go over them so we can see, for example, the session duration breakdown. Again, this portal is for our internal testing purposes. You can see that the sessions are fairly short. We can also see the hourly usage breakdown, kind of which hours in the day. This is actually my local time. So 5 p.m. Israel time would actually be 10 a.m. Eastern time, which makes sense. We can see kind of typically more more traffic during US morning hours. We can also see a geo breakdown of our users, obviously vast majority from the US, and we can even drill down to the US and see where most of my traffic is coming from. So 95% coming from Washington State. So to quickly recap, we went over the basic objects in UX analytics. So we have sessions, we have users, we have pages and events, and the reports that we offer in order to analyze these objects. And I kind of strongly encourage you, for those of you who potentially have not logged in or used user experience analytics, as I mentioned, it's already tracking data on your instance and application. So you can just log in and see what data is being captured and which data should be sent and tracked additionally. So going back to the deck, one last item I wanted to cover is how we can actually consume UX analytics data as part of our platform analytics workspace. I'll talk a little bit about the vision. So today we have kind of the platform analytics workspace and we have user experience analytics, and those are two separate experiences. Our vision is to bring all of the analytics data into one place, which will be the platform analytics workspace, enabling you to essentially consume all UX analytics data through platform analytics workspace. We'll also replace the existing dashboard experience, and we will provide with tailored experiences. For example, a tailored analytics dashboard for Employee Center, a tailored analytics experience for Now Mobile or for Virtual Agent. And will also allow you to embed UX analytics data as part of your custom workflows, dashboards, and applications. Now, we've made initial progress on this in the Tokyo release. We've released a store app, user experience analytics power integration. You'll have a link as part of the deck. And this will actually allow you to consume events, sessions, and user counts as part of your next experience analytics dashboards. Okay. We're gonna do a quick live demo of this. Pause screen share for a minute and share my screen. Dan, meanwhile, if there are any questions.
Yeah,
So-
you were answering a few of them as you progress, but there is one question. So it says if user analytics reports have a very high, let's say average high load time for a page, who needs to resolve this to reduce the load time of a page, considering that ServiceNow is managed in the cloud and this is also managed by ServiceNow? I'm guessing they're talking about if there's a report or something that comes by default, but that takes above average times to load, like how would that get resolved?
That's a great question. I think there's no kind of silver bullet answer, but I would say the first place I would start looking into is actually my custom widgets and custom code. That would probably be a good place to start. But yeah, that will require some engineering work and engineering analysis to understand what's causing this bottleneck. And it could be the Now platform, but it can also be some custom code or scripting that's running on my application.
Yeah. I would recommend when you have those types of scenarios, actually contacting our the Now support team, because they have all sorts of troubleshooting tools and diagnostics for slow performance, and they can pretty quickly determine where the bottlenecks are, and if it needs to get a more advanced dive into it, we have a persistence team that's the advanced engineering that can really get into where any potential performance issues might be.
And I think you may be also talking about what is actually in the user experience analytics dashboard, like those particular ones, because those are not something that are created by the customer. So if there's a report or widget or whatnot that's inside of that is just very long, I mean, is it again that's going to, is that a create a high incident? I mean, how's that work for user analytics information?
Yeah, I would say it would work in the same way, but go ahead, Danny.
Yeah, I was to say it really would be the same thing.
Yeah.
So it's but that's a good question.
Okay, that's it, Zahi. Go ahead.
Yep. I'm trying to load the data on our demo instance. In case it does not load here. Happily, it looks like it is loading. So for those of you who are not familiar with it, this is the platform analytics workspace. So this would be kind of the go-to place to create and consume dashboards, reports, KPIs, and in the future, UX analytics data as well. And we're gonna create a reusable data viz component that is actually consuming data from UX analytics. So I would create a new data viz component. Let's load a line chart. And when I add a data source on my list of available sources, I would see User Experience Analytics. This would be enabled after installing the Store app. Let's say I want to present an active users chart. So I would select Next Experience. Let's go with our unified navigation app, which is the main navigation application in Next Experience. And I want to look at active users. I can add this source. It will take the data a few seconds to load. I can also, by the way, configure the date range. The default will be the last 30 days. And here we can see the trend line. We can give it a name. We'll call it navigation active users. And once I save this data viz, I can actually reuse it in any dashboard. In the same way, we can, of course, load other types of data from UX Analytics. For example, I can select a single score. This would give me the number of active users in the last 30 days. I can even change my source. I can pick a specific event. Let's go again with Now Experience Analytics and the unified navigation app. And let's go with the page navigate event. And now I can see the number of page navigations in my unified navigation app. So this is kind of an exciting capability that we've added. And as I mentioned, in the future, we're planning to bring in all UX Analytics KPIs, data, and visualizations, including funnels and cohorts navigation paths to be consumable and viewable in dashboards and also in workspaces and in your custom applications and experiences.
Zahi, I think this might be somewhat related to that. So I'm not sure. There was a question about APIs used to pull this usage data and integrate it with other dashboards and breakdowns. I'm thinking
that's a great question.
Yeah, because there's the PA integration that you were talking about, but I'm wondering if there's anything else any other nuance or any other items we need to talk about with that.
So the APIs that are used by the platform analytics workspace are internal. They are not accessible for customers. We definitely get frequent requests around this, probably number 2 after user consent. So it's definitely on our roadmap, providing a customer-facing API that will allow customers to consume UX analytics data programmatically. But unfortunately, not available yet. I'll finish with a final slide that will be included in the deck that will be shared with you. Obviously, our first place to go to for questions would be the product documentation. It covers all the setup, activations, roles, different types of reports, etc. The developer docs resource will provide you with the APIs that will enable you to push custom data to UX Analytics. We talked about custom events and custom user properties. So that is documented here. And we also have a few tutorial videos available. We have an overview video on UX Analytics. We have a video on how to create and analyze conversion funnels, and another video on cohorts. We obviously also have our ServiceNow community and our platform analytics channel where you can post questions, and obviously in our ID portal as well. So if we have any additional questions, now would be a great time.
I think we have been asking them when necessary and then answering the other ones that have come in. So awesome. Is that your completion?
Yep. And I think one last note.
Sure.
I really enjoy engaging with any customer. So you can also feel free to reach out to me directly with questions, ideas, feedback. We have these sessions occasionally, but I think with analytics, it's very use case specific and can be very customer specific. So we can also provide some analysis and guidance on your specific use case and how to implement it and how to actually answer your questions with UX Analytics.
Awesome. Yeah, totally agree. And I know that Dan, you're getting deeper into this, the user experience analytics as well. So I know that you're a great source as well. Yeah, so we just had a confirmation. Thank you for answering the question on the API. I look forward to when it's released and can use it. So Zahi, thank you very much. Always grateful. I know that time zones are much different, and the fact that you were willing to accommodate, I really, really appreciate that. And I know that our customers do as well. It's always great information, and this stuff, I mean, what you were showing today was just pretty amazing. So I think back to my days as a former customer when we were trying to figure out ways of writing code to do all this stuff. And now that we have this directly at our fingertips, I think that it's very exciting. And I think that everybody should be, using it to see the journey of their employees or customers or whatnot. So really great stuff, and definitely appreciate it. And also appreciate you, Dan, and answering questions and monitoring the Q&A as well. So with that, we got a couple minutes, so I'll bust right through this. This will obviously check out our community page. Zahi just talked about the community. Check it out. We'll have this information and other information there. This will be out on our community page for Platform Analytics Academy sessions later on today or early tomorrow morning. Depends on when the recording comes through, but I'll make sure that I get that out there for you. And then make sure you look at those pro tips. They're on that same page. Check those out. Quick 5-minute videos. Just talks about performance analytics and your journey and how you should start it and things you should think about. Really good stuff there. Obviously, Now Learning. Check out Now Learning. I don't know necessarily if, and Zahi, maybe, I don't know if you know or not, are there Now Learning courses yet on user experience?
Yes, we do have a basic user experience analytics course available on Now Learning.
Awesome. Thank you. So check that out there along with other platform analytics things as well. PA Advanced course, I always like to make sure I continue to let you all know that it is on demand now if you want to check that out. And we do have sister academies that put on some really fantastic sessions as well. So check those out. And with that, I think it is actually a minute to spare. Zahi, once again, thank you very much. And Dan, I appreciate it. And I thank everyone for joining. We love having you all every couple of weeks. And with that, we'll see you in 2 weeks from now. Thank you.